Justice Assembly, I can't.
Yeah.
You see, I take a certain twist. And Rabbi who are brandy and Franka Cranka, I'm saying, also by demonstration, you said, and you
Nanabi.
Sammy,
Nanabi.
You could see clearly, sir, the issues are a honor or must sway the conversation, and people are pursuing a certain political agenda. Yeah, my culture say, Yakotuaba, not Ghana for concern about our judiciary. That there is the need for us to prune it. Because one institution are aimed to mean fairly. A failure in a way will go down. Yes. So the air cost it's not something I would say politically motivated. And the air cost beginning thereby, and I was John Mahamadu Asha see and I not just so Chief Justice and then Yamiadum petitioners and be any moment.
Additional to
first petitioner, a police officer
5.
And yet a police officer no, he's a lawyer or greater Kraway ACP. Or the same court, and the idea 7 year bogun so. And now, what Jatum not to her. Mammy, my better can't say, Omunipa. They virtually look down on almost everybody. And you know, Nipana what did not say we are one of honor. Then, according to the gentleman, who can your friend saying, Mosara Manipa, and who senior lawyer Albert and I wouldn't share that kind of remark. And I'm a minute court and all can move Biatra. All good police in any mass our court.
Now her titles, they're not there.
And what would that attitude no chim na no ko heba bi asa we asa school was wrong. Police no I a lawyer. Wadi na sem wadi ne for. Fine wajiatum. Then off record comments. And who as a disparaging comment who go na say. And then the police officer can say I disagree with you. My man say police boy monchino. And the police officer was detained. Oh yes. That is what happened in the petition. And you know, Assembly has nothing to do with the NDC. A personal way DOB.
Okay.
Yes. And then if I
yes.
Say your friend said say no the police no I'm a lawyer. And my catcher that your friend Adibi, your friend say sir your friend say a latest arrogance bina menkwa na mako school they look down when me nipa that kind of attitude no. And abra John Mahama conference we are so bold dia on team na no style we na man for free say normal that is that because the gentleman in the petition described it say that was the same thing the posture go and read the petition team na we must have share na about that kind of way na say nipa so or disagree with you immediately na arrest him and the police arrested the police officer and he was detained. That is what happened. So it has nothing to do with so BNDC and so the other people, no, and so there has to do with the Sika.
Yes.
Would you plane ticket? Chief Justice Baba, you are for 1 billion. Eddie plane ticket to America. Yeah, or my Sika. Am I 1 billion? No. How many young ladies in this country? And even 1,000
cities.
But states need to 1 billion. A man about plane ticket alone or Kwana Yasia Piano, your friend is saying per diem $10,000. You see the argument and they say, or you're entitled to, you see, yes, to quote to me Nabusia, but we are talking about a private travel, and the arrangement is that who as a person, and I'm saying we are Chief Justice, you know, we will pay, don't worry, but state you know you were interested in and if police need security do what say nyasa okwana bi ade akoto the state will have to suffer for that.
Sure.
Ono nimyansa security tranchan meba bra. So the entitlement of the security officer nobody you know rather comes to the daughter.
How?
And greed. Police you know you be kuro you be hero odi wachi kwa anya hwenko no so no ne nsabaka sa neema no because there is a reason why the state made it possible say kwa in the private way no for security do wachi say you security no tena ncha na ode ne baba sha no twa plane ticket 1/1 way man no na okotua per diem ya ansi ba ko pe another trip oko na ode ne kunu
DHS security na nine.
DC security na nine and ordinary call wow we remember one for member. These are petitioner ako and otherwise no has to do with Nema Akoso speaker issue no whole lot. Back on crowd there accusations of the man Chief Justice Mako 21. time ni ho can go through ni nyina 21 accusations and also sadi guma me no so yes oba na obeyi ne ho ano na dia member can atwas na ya won say we in the politics enye council of state I go through all these accusations and am coming to conclusion say no asem no nyensem hunu yentimi montungu anchi council of state I come asem ebia na amamfo onim the composition one of the immediate past Chief Justice so for Akufo Addo Unim Akoto Bam for dissenting those times, you know. She's a retired Supreme Court Justice bench in the Council of State in Hubi. And a mammy way NDC ni Betty Bodidrusu or a former Attorney General. Yes. Oje ahoho sa o hene no so obi ani ba bi ofriba omunyina kan ho bi. So when it comes to Emra former Chief Justice also former Supreme Court judge. So these are issues I won't mean to say petty keke na. I'm not sure that John Mahama can even pick a phone and call for Akufo say I don't know any merit, merit. The president cannot do that. He cannot call Akoto Bamfo and tell her say yes, it means that seven more cano credence wom. So about saying a political party jita nani and John Mahama bae nipo mo luso mo jima high profile individuals bebre. Why is MPP not speaking for those individuals? Na mum we no mo kasama no. And not tamale say ya fanzai CEO no that tamale teaching hospital no. See ya unity. I don't think that you on your press conference. Yeah. So you see that kind of attitude, you know. I say I don't know omo nkwa na betimi aye obi kwaya I wouldn't even Santi and this I won't away because petition I can't say me. Are you aware, say, Shraj boss? Your President Mills and appointed no. MPP political and not Dompreh or no Richard Niama or more petitioners or more MPP for throw petition the command John Mahama say my mena or your Shraj boss no what Jessica Shraj boss in the status at say justices of the High Court in the forum. Or throw petition the command is a mamina disika. John Mahama J petition no go through set up committee will go through at the end. President Mahama remove the Shroud boss. I remember that. The Shroud boss was appointed under NDC, but Ednam said they're not air cost no equity and President Mahama removed the Shroud boss. The same MPP or no Numuni pass send the petition that command John Mahama will follow through the constitution. And if he's following through the constitution, what is your business? And again, suspension of judges. This is not the first time. Yeah. And now straw petition the command President Mahama says some judges be akwajam ponche na nkoko. Asem no President Akufo Addo. And some no course na omo ye omo find this omo hu say merit wom no mo nya ni asem no we President Akufo Addo suspended these 4 judges including Justice Gertrude. Okay. Yeah. And son of final ruling neighbor abonten and son of all pama one. So you see, these are powers are clothed our president war. And the Akufo Addo can do the same thing. Why can't John Mahama do the same thing? Because John Mahama. Because John Mahama. You see that kind of way, no, looking down upon people say, oh, we didn't mean the way. Because Mekasa say, we are the people winning yansa and can this petition, you know. And go no more kind of back baby. And come back civil society organization be a cheer. Say I'm back as amount. Never I see one any credible civil society organization all come Chief Justice. What is that India? So yeah, I think that the president must remain focused. Ghana for say your Supreme Court and there is a problem. Individuals are on one their personal dealing or more de bonnier diomo. Policy no kind of petition in some woman. Yeah, over about hope. Nipa no sua de akodo police ACP at the court ayedi asema we nipa nyina ho media ho nanim ase na okọ react say I disagree with you we say police for nche no na I disagree with you ada we ya hwan ya wo bro mra so ana I mean yes kan so no sa be ma na oye ni sa no ne hu ofeche ni kunu ni nyanse wa bete ni kunu wa school che ni kunu yeah to be a police officer what they go through. Exactly. Law, no? You can't just look down upon that person. And that is the attitude. With the Anna you see, these people are living in the past. In those 1990, we are Kokotina, and the generation where Anno yeah. But say, Pontius Pilate no mo sha dade ache nkunta na kra ba ye na wudi nsemu na nipa be kana dua kire sa my lord no am for respect you based on what you do not because you are chief justice na Akufo Addo no your president kra no na am for come adwen kire how many wait. Yes now as a president kra am for come adwen kire how much more chief justice because I disagree with that was mo nkyere no
na ya che na ko detain
ya che na detain na mana ko sa ne ma we nyina na ya kata so yes.
After the ruling.
Yes.
After the ruling.
Yes.
Don't like doesn't even make sense.
Yes. What do you say about you?
Did you ever think that to appoint any very serious brain?
Yes. Because
considering his posture.
Because as a chief justice, you know. Reasonable. So you have to be very reasonable, very accommodative, that kind of stuff. Obia can some that kind of way. The bottom line is the judgment has been passed already. Where lies this comment? And in her response, you know, she couldn't refute that particular. I read the response. The response, she could not refute saying some now can decisions are on fan no and one judge your friends a decision now represented the view of your friends all other way no
the judges no one in na sika won tibo mu say I disagree in your fan too and as I judges no kwa na o say some question
fan konkotom na asem na brantia no ka no enya enough any basis e betimi active 146 and that is for the offense the committee to decide.
That's the reason why people are saying the response no cramp my assembly more serious.
Yes,
because you admitted to all the allegations.
What you say about papa na sem to onipa judge ya ote your offense committee enemy Panama has been at the Supreme Court. Yes, in China, any part go and check the records. Panel in baby because they tag him with certain wins.
Yeah.
Until recently, as a name society now, I am not slotting in the back. We have an about see, crowd between the two, no, and now quarter with junior and him. I will be to us and why what your friend is saying, Oba, Becca, we did not corner, not police officer. Now, Obia, we beggar. I'm going to and I'm going to catch us a will be or you will resign a crack. The committee, you not be comfortable
to have at least to have all that embarrassment and
another one. And not nipple back home would dinner who I don't believe.
Yeah,
then we also can win all kind of money. Chief Justice, a case in this man Dominibo, a call retirement and son a year dinner and then Okotan and Nimam to 2 as the Nabasa. So Obabra Papa near the wedding. So for me, I think that there is no political offense under to be a woman unless Obiwa or the Baba. We are talking about evidence. Because police in the personal experience and other trying to petition. The other group near Shining Star, also no experience or Munya and Yamanya and other person, no other Nerofol, no. Also, I outline 21 cases against Chief. On the Indian Urama airtime. Jachi question issue no yet be ma order near Bawura court computers or other from above and never cause Okrom how me say nyanda I didn't go through the petition you will be shocked and a petition about one thing so one of yeah
also respond
because Paul I don't watch in the me who the petition no because Abra President Mahama or cho letter their command akwa je say on money be no that letter no got leak petition in Sakai and anybody wants Paul I don't watch the other TV so so fight it's not that response you use political anger and fight but some of these things because I see a different John Mahama very firm, resolute and ready to do the right thing. I'm sure say he should go ahead because that is the reason why Ghanaians voted for him because Ghanaians will not admit failure, they will not admit weakness. The focus on this say this thing goes beyond the Chief Justice. It's not about the Chief Justice. It's about the sanctity of the institution called judiciary. We cannot be having criminals living individuals. I would think that they are all powerful. Than sad notion, do not work today because the youth of today, everything you do. That is why I make yourself soft no preach say boys no far man for social media. And now man for nyama me wata na nkasa won never trim. Before they on the call so we need to do things right.
Okay. All right, Richard.
Sometime before, President John Dramani Mahama was sworn in as the President of Ghana, at least one citizen felt that the Chief Justice was in breach of her oath of office and the legal conditions under which she could continue to be in office. This is before President John Dramani Mahama came into office. Now, this citizen took advantage of the provisions of the Constitution and made his case as the law requires, and sent a petition to the president, who was then Nana Addo Akufo Addo, calling for the dismissal of the Chief Justice. Now, this is a fact. This cannot be disputed. Nana Akufo Addo decided, with or without, because we are not sure, the advice of the Council of State, that petition did not have merit and therefore dismissed it. It's important to take note of this. Now, as it turns out, we are told, and yesterday I saw a piece which was put out by the petitioner in that case, that before Nana Akufo Addo took his final decision to retain the Chief Justice, he asked the Chief Justice to respond to the petition. And that was on the basis of the Chief Justice's response to the petition that he came to the conclusion that no prima facie case has been established and therefore the matter should be dismissed. Now, what is interesting is that the statement which was issued in the name of the then president did not tell us that the president took account of the response of the Chief Justice. It didn't tell us that. Now, for me, that is very significant. Because what we are told is that on the face value of the petition, the president came to the conclusion that it had no merit. Okay. Now, if the president sought the response of the Chief Justice and weighed the response of the Chief Justice as against what was contained in the petition, then the president sat over a trial. You understand? And the Constitution does not allow him to do that. Okay? Now, we have been bombarded with claims about the rules of natural justice, that the accused must be heard and so on. I've heard so much of that. The petitioner in this case is saying that the rules of natural justice were violated and that the Chief Justice, having responded, he should have been given the opportunity to contest the claims of the Chief Justice. And once he was not given the opportunity to contest the claims of the Chief Justice, then the rules of natural justice were not upheld in that matter. But let's put that aside. Now, it is obvious that petitions for the removal of Chief Justice have continued from the time of Nana Addo Akufo Addo as president up to today. Because since President John Dramani Mahama took office, he received 3 petitions also calling for the removal of the Chief Justice and acted on the basis of those 3 petitions. Now we are informed that since he started acting on the basis of those 3 petitions, there have been 2 more petitions, bringing the number of petitions to 6. Now I'm sitting back and I'm bewildered. This is the first time in our history that there has been such a petition calling for the removal of the Chief Justice. And it is not 1, it is not 2, it is not 3, 6 petitions. So naturally I ask myself, what has happened? What is so special about this Chief Justice that at least 6 citizens feel compelled to take advantage of the provisions of the Constitution in order to get it? It's extraordinary. Something is happening. It's extraordinary. Now, I've been trying to find out what is so extraordinary, and to be honest with you, I don't know. I haven't found out. We're all still asking questions and so on. There must be something very extraordinary about this Chief Justice. Now, if you look at the provisions of the Constitution, it is very, very clear. There's no ambiguity when it comes to the provisions of the Constitution. And indeed, the lawyers on this panel have referred to other provisions of the Constitution. The provision that I have concentrated on is Article 146. Now, if you read Article 146, it says that when the president receives a petition, he should forward it, he or she should forward it to the Council of State, which shall then determine whether there's a prima facie case or not, that on the face of the petition, whether it is worthy to move further to investigate, the claims in the petition. That's what the Constitution says. Okay? Now, when the president received the petitions, what did he do? He forwarded it to the Council of State as prescribed by the Constitution. He did not take a decision on the matter. Significantly, the Chief Justice then protests that before the Council of State determines whether or not there's a prima facie case, she's entitled to a response. If you read the Constitution, she's not entitled to any response. Read the Constitution. I want anybody to read the Constitution and tell me that she's entitled to a response. She asks for 7 days within which to respond. The president says, no, I give you 10 days instead of 7. I like. President says, I give you 10 days, even though we're asking for 7 days. As a matter of fact, the president could have said, we are not entitled to a response, and it would still have been constitutional. But the president says, you want 7 days to respond, I give you 10. She writes a response. The response is then forwarded to the Council of State, so that the Council of State, in determining whether or not a prima facie case has been established, would also take account of her side of the story. Now, mind you, this Council of State is not a vagabonds association. On this Council of State is a retired Chief Justice. On this Council of State is a lawyer of repute and in good standing and a former Speaker of Parliament. On this Council of State, there are several lawyers on the Council of State. On this Council of State, there is a retired police chief. On this Council of State, there are retired ex-service personnel on the Council of State. So it is not an association of vagabonds. And indeed, on this Council of State, there are persons appointed by the President and persons elected on the basis of universal adult suffrage on this Council of State. So I'm wondering how anybody, for any stretch of imagination, can come to the conclusion that this Council of State is a rubber stamp for the President. That would be a very difficult decision to come to. But the Council of State looked at the petitions and also looked at the response of the Chief Justice and came to the conclusion that a prima facie case has been established. Now, when you talk about a prima facie case being established, it does not mean that the Chief Justice is guilty of the offenses alleged. It doesn't mean so. It means that on the face of the petition, we have come to the conclusion that the matters need to be investigated and the facts established. That's what it means. Okay? So it is possible possible that the next stage, which is the stage where the president actually establishes a 5-member committee, that next stage can investigate the matters and come to the conclusion that the Chief Justice is innocent and should continue in office. You understand? Now, there is something very, very clear in the constitutional provisions. And what is it? The Constitution says that the petition and the processes of dealing with this petition should be held in secret. There's a good reason for this. Now, the reason for this simply is that yes, a prima facie case can be established, but the 5-member committee so appointed by the president can determine that the Chief Justice is innocent. In which case, the Chief Justice must continue to be Chief Justice. Now, if it is not secret, if the documents are not secret, if the process is not secret, it is possible that the Chief Justice may suffer some reputational damage which would haunt her if she were to come back to her office. So the provisions which insist that these hearings ought to be held in camera is to protect the Chief Justice herself from the spread of allegations which may turn out to be frivolous. You understand what I'm saying? Now, interestingly, when the president wrote to the Chief Justice, after the Chief Justice had complained about the need for her, to put up her defense and so on, strikingly, the president protested that we are leaking information about this process. I hope you all remember. Yeah. And that it is not proper and it is not in your interest to be leaking information. As we speak, the Chief Justice has not told the president that what the allegation the president made was wrong and baseless. I don't want to go by the saying that silence means consent. Because it's not always that silence means consent. But for those of you who believe that silence means consent, then the Chief Justice would have agreed that she has actually leaked part of the process. You understand? In any case, only the Chief Justice under these circumstances has been accused of leakage. And she has not responded to the accusation of leakage. Be that as it may, the Chief Justice then fires her response to the allegations which have been made. And then, interestingly, within hours, the website of a radio station, which is perceived, and I'm choosing my words very carefully, perceived to be aligned with the opposition to the president, publishes details of her response. I would struggle, really struggle, to come to the conclusion that the president's office or persons who work with the president leaked that information. Because that leakage clearly was not meant to protect the interests of the president. And only hostile forces could have carried out that leakage. And I'm 100% certain that only forces hostile to the president could have carried out that leakage. So be that as it may, now we have the documents about the case in the public domain, being discussed in the public domain, in clear violation of the constitutional provision which insists that these matters ought to be discussed and handled in camera. You understand what I'm saying? So somebody has deliberately decided that what the Constitution provides for should be set aside already by leaking. The person or persons have come to the conclusion that we shouldn't follow the Constitution. And that's a very worrying indication. And you lawyers always say that those who seek equity ought to come with clean hands. That's what you lawyers say. So, by implication, what it simply means is that those who want to uphold the tenets of the Constitution ought to demonstrate that they believe in the Constitution, they are ready to protect the Constitution by abiding by its provisions. You don't protect the Constitution by not abiding by its provisions. And the act of leakage is a clear constitutional violation. Okay. Now, it's interesting. After this initial leakage, you had television presenters actually putting the petition and the Chief Justice's response on television screens and discussing them and so on. Now, to all intents and purposes, what was happening there was the trial of the case, which is supposed to be done by the 5-member committee. So we have now taken the matters from the 5-member committee, put it in the public domain, and have begun trial of the issues. I find that exceedingly worrying. And in fact, a deliberate act to trample on the provisions of the Constitution. And I find that exceedingly reckless, because the reputational damage that the Chief Justice is not supposed to suffer is now being inflicted upon her. You understand? Now, I don't want to be discussing what and what is in the petition and what the Chief Justice's response may be, because I still want to be able to say that what appears to be the leaked documents may not be the authentic documents, because there's no grounds to believe that these are the authentic documents. They may very well be the authentic documents, but in terms of strict proof, none of us can say that those are the strict documents. So I don't want to get into that thing of discussing, these documents as fakes, as original, and so on. That is not for me to do. Okay. But if you look at the processes prescribed by the Constitution, indeed, if you look at Article 146, many of the actions that the President has to take, and I'm using the word has to take, shall take upon the receipt of a petition are mandatory. In fact, their presidential duties, their duties imposed on the President by the Constitution, and his refusal to do that can lead to the impeachment of the President. You understand? If the President refuses to abide by any of the provisions in Article 146, the President can be accused of constitutional violation, and the President himself will suffer consequences for not following the Constitution. These are his duties. We elected him as President to perform these duties. Every and anybody seeking office as President knows that the Constitution has some injunctions on him. The Constitution prescribes duties that he must do. One of those duties is to refer petitions for the removal of the Chief Justice to the Council of State. One of those duties is that after the Council of State has determined that a prima facie case has been established, he is enjoined, he is forced by force. He has to establish a 5-member committee. Now, the membership of this 5-member committee is also prescribed by the Constitution, and it is very interesting. 2 judges of the Superior Court, that's what the Constitution says, and 3 other members who should not be lawyers. Wow! The Constitution says that that committee should have 3 other members who should not be lawyers. There should not be parliamentarians. It is clear. So what the Constitution seeks to do is to have 3 lay members of the community. So you see, if the president decided to have Nana Akufo Addo, former president, General Secretary of the New Patriotic Party, and Nana B as the 3 other members, would have complied with the Constitution.
Except for the fact that those 2 are lawyers.
Oh, Nana B. So, sorry. So,
I think all 3. Frimpong Kudia is also a lawyer.
Oh, thank you. So, if the president decided, now let me change it. If the president decided to have Alhaji Mahamadu Bawumia as one of the 3, Wontumi as one of the 3, and John Boadu as one of the 3, he would have complied with the Constitution. He would not be in breach of the Constitution. You understand what I'm saying? On the other hand, if he also decided...
Why are you using them as...
wait for him.
Because they are not lawyers.
Because they are not lawyers, they are not parliamentarians.
They are not the only Ghanaians. Wait for him.
I haven't finished.
Wait for him.
Have I finished?
Wait for him, please.
If the president decided to have my friend here...
No, I'm not that.
Don't worry.
No, it's just an example.
But if the president decided to have you as a member of the committee of the 3, he would not be in breach of the Constitution. In fact, if he decided to appoint my good friend Dr. Toniedu as one of the 3, he would not have been in breach of the Constitution. If Senator Numo was made one of the 3, he would still not have been in breach of the Constitution. You understand what I'm saying? And the 3 persons who were nominated, in addition to the 2 justices of the Supreme Court, are not in breach of the Constitution. Okay. Now, there are some things which are interesting. They are said in memos, you understand? And I'm sure we've all heard them. Some people have looked at the 3 who were appointed and saying, what? The former Auditor General is sitting there. How can we be sure that he will not take a position against the Chief Justice? And we cannot be sure that he will not take a position against the Chief Justice because he went to the Supreme Court to fight for his rights. And that the Supreme Court, presided over by Gertrude Torkonoo, made sure that his rights were upheld only at the time when it wasn't necessary. So he must have a legitimate grievance against her. Now, I'm not the one saying this. People who claim to be supporters of Chief Justice are saying this. What they forget is that this is also an admission of an injustice done against a citizen. And if a court does an injustice against a citizen, that must be in clear violation of the Constitution. You see, so by making that argument, they themselves are admitting that there is something wrong with our court system. And the persons who populate the court system, because an injustice was done to Dompreh, that's their own argument, it's not my argument. I know Mr. Dompreh considerably well. And in my view, based on what I know about him and my interaction with him, I cannot suspect that he would abandon the national interest and pursue a personal vendetta. I don't think that that is possible with Dompreh, given who he is. But you see, it's not what I think, it's not my view which is important in this matter. So even though I think that he's an upright man and will not sacrifice the national interest for his personal interest, it is a non-issue in this matter. Who am I? You understand what I'm saying? But those who argue that his presence on the committee foretells the outcome of the committee's work indirectly admits abuse of citizens' rights through the court process, and they should be careful. They are not helping the Chief Justice in any way when they advance this kind of argument. But you see, the Constitution says, and this is very critical, if you look at all the provisions of Article 146, there are only 3 places where the President is given discretionary power. I've asked for the Constitution and it hasn't come yet. But I remember very clearly that subsection 10 and 11 and one more, which I can't remember off my head, said that the President may act in a certain way. If you look at all the other provisions, it says shall act. But in those 3 instances, it says that the President may.
The 10 has 2 discretions. Not just the 10 alone has 2 discretions.
Oh, the 10 has 2 discretions.
Yeah.
So 10 and 11 are where those discretions are. Okay. Oh, you have it there. Yeah. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you very, very much. So I was talking about the discretion that the President has. And 10 says, where a petition has been referred to a committee under this article, the President may, that's the first discretion, in the case of the Chief Justice acting in accordance with the advice of the Council of State, by warrant signed by him, suspend the Chief Justice. That's discretionary. May, in the case of any other justice of the Superior Court or a chairman of a regional tribunal acting in accordance with the advice of the Judicial Council, suspend that justice or that chairman or regional tribunal. That's discretionary. The President may, at any time, revoke the suspension under this article. That's also discretionary. Then 11, the President may at any time, it's covered. 11 is covered. So 3, where the President has discretionary powers. Okay. Now it's interesting. For all the things that the President has to do, it is mandatory, compulsory. It's only when it comes to the suspension that the President has discretionary power. Okay? So that is not based on the advice of the Council of State. The Council of State advises that a prima facie case has been established. And on the basis of that advice that the prima facie case has been established, the President ought to move to the next level of appointing the 5-member committee, which he has done. Now, Senna, now listen to me very carefully. As we speak, a member of Parliament has gone to the Supreme Court asking that the decision of the President should be set aside, that the President should be injuncted. Who is on trial? Who is on trial? Is the Chief Justice. Are we saying that the President should allow the Chief Justice to continue to sit as a Chief Justice, and if she continues to sit as a Chief Justice, she then has the power to empanel judges to hear her own case? Amen. Master, what logic is this? That the Chief Justice who is being investigated should have the power, she continue to be in office, and have the power to empanel a court to hear her own case. And lawyers are making this demand. Right-thinking citizens are making this demand. Leaders of political parties are making this demand. Sabo, this is the demand you people are making. That the Chief Justice who is being investigated should continue to be Chief Justice. She should have the powers to choose which judges should hear her case. Are you serious? Abba, I mean, what is wrong? Something must be wrong with you people. even say that. And because of this, you are organizing a demonstration so that the Chief Justice who is being investigated would appoint people to deal with their own case. You are organizing a demonstration for this? Is your head on your shoulder? I can't believe it. You see, we need to break these things down. What they're saying is that this Chief Justice, Gertrude Torkonoo, Her Lordship Gertrude Torkonoo, should have the power when the NPP Member of Parliament filed the injunction, seeking the court to injunct the President and the, Her Ladyship Gertrude Torkonoo should decide which judges should hear this case. Even in Kuku's land, this will not happen. Incredible, unbelievable. You are making this demand and you are mobilizing people to go on a demonstration in support of this demand. Hey, so there are some people who will go and demonstrate because of this. I can't believe it. Then, for me, one of the Jesus Christ, one of the demands, it doesn't baffle me. I mean, it completely unsettles me. Is that the Chief Justice is a woman. She's a woman. And because she's a woman, the constitutional provision should not apply to her. Who told you that? Where is that coming from? So in this country, there's a different law for women and a different law for men. Is that what you're telling us? And you're organizing a demonstration to back your claim that the constitution should apply differently to women and differently to men. And people will join that demonstration? I can't believe it. You know, Charlotte say, I didn't know that she was a man. I didn't know that Charlotte Osei was a man. Wasn't she a woman? Why did you remove her as electoral commission when she was a woman? And a statement to this effect is signed by FIDA. I can't believe it. I've had a great deal of respect for FIDA. FIDA has been a women's advocate group that many of us have respected over the years. And I want to believe that this statement is signed by only a section of the executive and does not have the full endorsement of women because of FIDA as a group. Because I'll be surprised. I'll be surprised if the members of FIDA actually sat and all of them agreed that such a statement, which is so damaging to the cause of women, should be issued. But this statement is so damaging to the cause of women. And I know people who have worked with FIDA or have been members of FIDA who would not agree to such a statement being issued. I mean, I don't think I'm wrong. Betty Molden-Dusu used to work with FIDA. Is she saying this? Is she still a member of FIDA? So those people who are members of FIDA, who work with FIDA and so on, who disagree, let us hear your voices. Otherwise, we would assume that all of you think that in this country there should be a separate law for women and a separate law for men. That when it comes to interpreting the Constitution, it should be interpreted differently for men and differently for women. I cannot believe that this is from FIDA. You understand?
She supported this move.
I cannot believe that this is from FIDA. But I'm sure that in the coming days, we will get to know who pushed this statement and whether or not all of the FIDA members support this statement. We will get to know in the coming days. But you see, it doesn't end there. it gets more bizarre. What these people are saying is simply that the president should not respect the constitution. They're saying that when the president receives a petition from a citizen, he should not forward it to the Council of State. And that when the Council of State advises that a prima facie case has been established, he should not set up the 5-member committee. And that when the 5-member committee is established, he cannot use the discretion granted him in the Constitution to suspend the Chief Justice. Hey, so we've now come to the point where lawyers, seasoned leading politicians are begging the president or forcing the president not to respect the Constitution. And the same people will turn around and say that, look, the Constitution is sacrosanct. There should be no coup in Ghana. The same people who tell us that this Constitution is sacrosanct, there should be no coup in Ghana, are telling President John Dramani Mahama that he should not respect the Constitution. And the reason why they are telling him not to respect the Constitution is that the person involved is a woman. And one more reason which is very interesting. Hey! Whoa! One more reason which is very interesting. Senator, you've heard. They are saying that, look, if we allow or if we follow these constitutional provisions and the Chief Justice is removed from office, it is most likely that there will be petitions for the removal of the Electoral Commission and a commissioner and chairman of the Electoral Commission and other members of the commission. So let's stop it now. Don't let us apply the Constitution now so that we can save the Electoral Commission. Yay! What reasoning is this? What kind of brain can think like this? Sana, let's say that the Chief Justice has done something who contravenes the Constitution and who justifies her removal. And she's removed. If the Chief Justice is removed and there is concrete evidence, provable evidence, verifiable evidence that the Electoral Commission or its chairperson or members have violated the laws of Ghana or have engaged in actions which affront the Constitution, why should we keep them there? Somebody should give me one reason why we cannot impeach the Chief Justice, impeach the chairperson of the Electoral Commission, and even impeach the president in addition. Why can't we do that? Why can't we do that as a people, as a country? If the president who has initiated this move violates the Constitution, why can't we, after removing the Chief Justice, remove the president through the process of impeachment? And if we can remove the president through the process of impeachment, at least at the level of theory, why can't we remove the chairperson of the Electoral Commission through another process of impeachment and through the application of the rules which are imposed upon us by the Constitution? Somebody should give me a good reason. So let nobody be stampeded into thinking that after the removal of the Chief Justice, any other public official who can be removed lawfully will be saved. Nobody will be saved. What will save other public officials is their conduct. Whether their conduct is above board, whether their conduct does not border on criminality, whether they have not displayed incompetence. Because if you are incompetent as a Chief Justice, there is no reason for keeping you there. If you have violated the Constitution after Chief Justice, that is if the Chief Justice is proving, if the allegations against her are proven, they may not be proven. She may walk as an innocent person and come back as Chief Justice. I don't know anything now which suggests that she may not be able to go through this committee and come out with flying colors. She may. You understand? But if she doesn't, it doesn't provide protection for any public officer who can also be removed through the application of the constitutional provisions. Listen, now let me say this. I will be most disappointed if any effort is made to subvert this demonstration which our friends are planning. They must be allowed to demonstrate. It is a right which is guaranteed by the Constitution for all citizens. So they have a right to demonstrate. And nothing should be done to prevent them from demonstrating or to delay even the demonstration. In fact, they should be encouraged to demonstrate. I'm encouraging them, they should demonstrate. Master, they should demonstrate. If they want to organize printed demonstrations, they should go ahead and demonstrate. But you see, they should not delude themselves that because they are demonstrating, the president will violate the constitution. You understand? So they should be allowed to demonstrate. In fact, it's not a question of being allowed to demonstrate. The constitution itself gives them that right to demonstrate. And nobody has the power to take that right away from them because they are members of NPP or some other party who didn't even contest the election and some other party who got 0.15% in the election as well. They are all entitled to demonstrate. And I think they should be allowed to demonstrate. I would encourage them to demonstrate. You understand? One, we have to be clear in our minds that those who disagree with them also have the right to demonstrate. Okay? And if you look at the current configuration of the forces in our country, you can tell what these outcomes should be. If everybody is demonstrating for what they believe in, you can tell who can put out the largest numbers. But master, left to me alone, even those who disagree with them should not organize demonstrations. For what? To implement what the Constitution enjoins us to do as citizens, you don't need demonstrations to do that. These are matters of law, constitutional law, and so on. So, no problem. Those who are against it, those who want president to violate the Constitution, let them demonstrate. No problem. In fact, the police should give them protection, and so on. What cannot be tolerated and should not be tolerated under any circumstance is for these persons who want to exercise their right to demonstrate and so on to use that as a cover to destabilize the nation or to destroy property and so on. That one there, it will not be tolerated. They have a right to demonstrate. That right should be enforced. They should be allowed to demonstrate and so on. But if in the process of demonstration, you burn somebody's car, somebody is driving on the road, innocent person, he didn't join your demonstration, you burn his car, what? The law should deal with you. The same law which allows you to demonstrate frowns upon you burning other people's cars. If in the process, you see somebody wearing an NDC t-shirt and you hit his head with a stick and he dies, you should be held responsible for murder and dealt with according to the laws of this country. Finish. So all of us will enjoy our rights when the time comes. And I wish them well. I encourage them. I wish them, please don't stop the demonstration. Go on, go and demonstrate. Because if you demonstrate, you'll be making a clear statement to the world that you have no belief in this constitution. If you demonstrate, you're making a very clear statement in the world that you don't believe in the rule of law and so on. Because how can you demonstrate to force the president to do what is unconstitutional? Or to force the president to do something against clearly stated constitutional provisions. It's up to you. So go and demonstrate. If you are delaying, the demonstration should have started already. You are delaying too much. Go and demonstrate. What is this? Sana.
Thank you. And from all indication, the Attorney General will not be in their way. I think that in the case of the anti-galamsey demonstration, the police went to court to try to stop the demonstration. The AG actually advised the police to stop that process and withdraw whatever they sent to. So the Attorney General will not be in their way. They won't have a problem there. There are a few comments. This one, Dr. A.K. Amenshia says, good afternoon. Please kindly ask Kwesi Pratt what would he do if he finds himself in CJ Torkonoo's position. What is his advice to the CJ at this critical moment in the history of the country? Second, if Kwesi Pratt, okay, Ghanaians are expecting 2 different books. Okay, that the Ghanaians are expecting 2 different books from you. So this one is a different matter.
I can deal with the first question. Yeah. It's not difficult at all. Yeah. You see, because she's Chief Justice and is suspected to be fair to all, to be independent and so on, she has a duty to herself and to Ghana at least to appear independent. The way the matters are being carried on and so on, the aesthetics are very bad for her. And if I were her, I would act differently. Look, she has a right to choose whoever she wants as her lawyers. No problem. But you see, perception is not always about reality. So if she ends up in a situation where all her lawyers are from a certain political party or affiliated to a certain political party, it may color or deepen public perception. If she allows this case to be reduced to a fight between MPP and NDC, through the leakage of documents and so on, it is harmful to her and so on. So if I were her, I'd be worried about the aesthetics of the case too. Not just the substance, but the aesthetics of the case. And so far, when it comes to the aesthetics of the case, I don't think that she's doing very well. So that is my answer to that question.
Okay, great.
Thanks for watching. Like and share the video. You can also drop your comment. Please don't forget to subscribe. Click on the bell to turn on the notification.